Okay, just take us through like how did you decide I want to write a book and how did you make time to do that and also do the radio show and the podcast and everything else?
Yeah, that's a really fair question. And I, a couple weeks ago, got a little bit burdened by that same question because I was feeling a little bit behind. So what's happening is I feel like I'm caught up in this area and in this area, but I'm treading water here and I'm not treading water over here. And so I started compartmentalizing the things that I do. So for me, Mondays, I don't work in the office, which is why I'm in my home office today, right? And it helps me have space to write, to work on the speaking, to work on the business startup, line up my guests for the radio show, all that stuff. I have different to-do lists, and that helps me also. But I don't want to sit here and tell you I've mastered it either, Tara. If we're going to be authentic, I have to tell you I'm working through that. And so I asked a friend of mine who similarly situated, who has three or four different things he does, and he gave me a couple tips, and that was good. And I think people have to find what works for themselves. Right. And so what works for me may not work for other people. I find I write better in the morning. So a lot of times I'll get up and write. I made the decision. Well, so the book sprung from a talk that I gave in 2015. Everything I needed to know about business I learned as a waiter. That was the talk. And I realized I still had the Prezi that from way back when. So I printed it up and gave it to my son Dan, who's a partner at the ad agency, who was a server at Granite City restaurants and I think Abuelos, which was a Mexican restaurant chain for a while. And he added some thoughts and notes. And this was about 2 years ago. And then The Bear won all those awards, and the book is about hospitality and food service. And I was like, this is a hot subject. I just started, it was tough research, Tara, but somebody had to go to the bars and the restaurants. And my wife, Laurel, and I did it we
Oh,
did it
yeah.
for the team. It was grueling, but yeah, but it was the outline. And then I'm not going to say the book wrote itself, but the pieces really did fit together. And it was my second book. The first one I wrote in about 3 months during COVID. It was a real kind of like a press. There was a lot of empty space and a lot of anxiety. And so I wrote that book called 40 West back then. This one was a little bit more calculated and, let the veil down on the curtain a little bit and just say, I wanted to build subject matter expertise and to give a platform to do more speaking. And I thought, well, owner of an ad agency, that's interesting, but author, of an international best-selling book, that's a lot more compelling. And I was intentional with the radio show and the book, so those pieces would come together. The timing didn't work exactly like I thought, but the pieces have all come together. So yeah, that's how it fits together. And I try really hard, although there are times I'm anxious about one of the things that aren't going as well. But I try to kind of stay focused where I am on what I need to do at that time and then do the next thing. It's in the book actually. It talks about reprioritization and the need to shift your priorities, triage as you get more information, right? So
Yeah.
try to practice that principle on a regular basis.
I think
And
it's so interesting how, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, I just was going to say it is frightening sometimes. So what I always say is I keep my head down working and my eyes up looking for opportunity.
Yeah, it's like your head's on a pivot, right?
A little bit.
You have to be. I think it I was going to say it was interesting how like 2015 you did that presentation and then you got inspired by The Bear, the for people who don't know, which I'm sure everybody does, is a series on Hulu about the chef in the restaurant. They won some awards. That's that resurfaced that presentation and that topic. And then that's when you wrote the book was many years later, right? It was an idea and it was a concept that maybe wasn't right at the time, 10 or so years ago. So even revisiting something and when you have the team in place, because I'm sure a lot of that had to do with it is you now have leadership in place at the agency that you can delegate to, and you've opened up that bandwidth by taking Mondays as the Bruce Day to think, to do the other projects you're passionate about, to have that bandwidth. But all that had to come together, right?
Yeah, the pieces had to fit together. It's a really really poignant remark you make, Tara, because I think one of the things that happens is I thought it would be a good book, but I didn't know how to write a book. And so when I wrote the other book, then I was like, okay, well, I did this once. I don't want to do it the same way. I want to do it a little differently this time. And so I asked people, including you, like other business people that you know, what did they do? And so there's so many times we think we have to invent things when really we can replicate what other people do. And so the idea, I thought during the teens, hey, this would be a good book, but I didn't do anything about it. It just kind of rattled around in my brain. And you're right, I was not in the right place to do it. When I got to the right place, I bared down and powered through it. And yeah, so just like you said, the timing has to be right. And that isn't always the case. Timing isn't always right. So it's fun to have a bunch of different possibilities back there.